what's on the news today.
Hi, welcome to Drugs Today show. I'm Elizabeth Flores and this is
Kendall Fields.
Okay, and we have breaking news today on some high schoolers at Stanwood High School.
Okay, so at Stanwood, there was a couple of students found doing what they called dabs in the bathroom during lunchtime. And those are concentrated cannabis extracts, which is pretty much just weed, but a lot more concentrated. And so we were interviewing them after they were found and talked to. And we also interviewed their peers, which we discovered that over time that they had become more and more dependent on marijuana, and they began doing these dabs, and the other kids reported that they have became less outgoing, their grades have dropped, and they are very distant with their other friends. Even though marijuana is considered a less addictive drug, daily and regular use may influence a person to try stronger drugs or increase the quantity of the drugs that they're using, because as they become more tolerant, they are trying to achieve the same high as they did when they first started using the drug. Also, there was a party that was busted in Lakewood where almost 200 underage kids were caught drinking. Although these kids believed that they were just doing some harmless drinking, little did they know that their brain, compared with the average adult's brain, is much more sensitive to these alcohol substances, and it has much bigger effects on their brain. Drinking impairs the hippocampal functions. One of these is the production of LTPs, which it just slows down the system, and it also enhances the effects of gamma-aminobutyric acid, which has very sedative effects. And because the brain undergoes such extensive changes during adolescence, it's reasonable to assume that the disruption of these processes by alcohol could lead to long-term effects of a person's brain, especially kids. And alcohol exposure during adolescence interferes with the developmental processes that leads to adult sensitivity to alcohol's effects on motor coordination.
Okay, so my story that I have brought up from several sources. So at Skagit Valley College, one of the counselors reported to me the effects of heroin on our students here at SVC. Although not many are actually using heroin, there is a particular story about a student. We'll call her Susie. And Susie's a college student, and she met up with her counselor after feeling signs of distress and failing her math exam in pre-calculus. The counselor has been notified that Susie has been using heroin for the last month, every week, with injections. She's a very good student, does very well in pre-calculus up until the past month that she just started using. She was introduced to it by friends who use heroin as well and marijuana as well. And when she was at a party, she contracted HIV when sharing needles with her friends, because many of the people at that party were using heroin as well and sharing the same needle. Susie reported feeling anxious and more sad than usual, very increased feelings of anxiety and fear throughout throughout daily events that she was doing, which wasn't normal for her. Her counselor notified her that these are associated with her frequent drug use in the past month since she was using heroin each week. She didn't know that it would affect her brain, and the counselor and doctor that she had seen has told us that her amygdala is being affected because her anxiety is just going up so much, and she's just showing high increases in anxiety, almost as if she has an anxiety disorder, but she doesn't quite yet. Her frontal cortex is also affected, which plays a part in problem solving, which is probably why her grades weren't so well on her math test the last week that she had come in to talk about with her counselor.
It's a good thing they bring this up on the news because support for legalizing marijuana has nearly tripled from 16%, now it's at 54%. And the use of marijuana is becoming way more common, especially in kids nowadays. And it's really accepted into society. And I think this is not okay because marijuana is pretty much a gateway drug, and once people start using it a lot, they're going to move on to bigger and apparently better things. And when it comes to alcohol, that affects everyone pretty much. Alcohol can do so much damage to a person's body, it's crazy. Especially during adolescence, that's when the brain goes so many changes and is growing the most in your whole lifetime. What else the news has to say about alcohol? Welcome back to the Drugs Today show. My name's Kendall Fields. We would like to be reporting today on alcohol in teens. Most don't know how badly alcohol can affect you, but we'd like to show you what can really happen. First of all, muscular strength and endurance, you don't really think much about it when you're out partying with your friends, but honestly, if you're an athlete, especially in college or high school, you should know that skeletal muscles weaken due to the tissue damage caused by high levels of alcohol consumption, so you can pretty much becoming weaker while you're just drinking out with your friends. You don't really think about it, but that's what's happening to your muscles. And alcohol can literally break down the cells in one's body over time and cause them to just have weaker muscles and they aren't as good as withstanding what your old muscles could do. Researchers also have discovered that the prefrontal cortex in your brain, as well as the hippocampus, undergo changes, especially if heavy drinking is happening during adolescence. I'd just like to have a side note on this. If you're going into college, you shouldn't be drinking because that's when most of your studying happens, and with your brain deteriorating with alcohol going into your bloodstream, that's just not a good combination. Also, another system using glutamate, a neurotransmitter, also appears to undergo changes during fluent intoxication. Evidence shows that the NMDA receptor complex changes during postnatal development and may continue during adolescence. These results prove that the brain is much more vulnerable in this state, and mainly during adolescence there is so much damage that could be done with heavy drinking. Also, it is found that people turn to alcohol mainly because of depression and even the feelings of just being alone. A lot of people use alcohol as a way to get away from it or just to not think about their problems and deal with them. So they just put them off later and drink their feelings away pretty much. Of course, it does provide some relief as in the moment, really, but in the long run, alcoholism is making you more depressed because alcohol is a depressant, which with such easy access for people, it's just way easier to go get some booze instead of going and getting depression medicine or getting help for your problems. Most of the studies of alcoholism have proven that people with little family support, depression, or PTSD are the ones that are more inclined to having problems with drinking. When a person has very little family by their side, they often feel as if no one cares about them, so they turn to drinking to make themselves feel better. And when someone is very unhappy, they just drink, and then it makes them more suicidal even. And that's when a lot of suicides happen, is once a person has turned to an alcoholic, then they just lose hope on themselves altogether. And another thing that is closely related to alcoholism is just PTSD in general, especially in soldiers and other military personnel that are either returning from their deployments or they're done with the service. And it's mainly found in this because a lot of the people coming back from war have had traumatic experiences, so they're trying to forget what has happened to them, which is why they turn to alcohol. And studies have found that combat deployed soldiers are at higher risk for onset heavy and binge drinking, and the range of alcohol-related problems after they return home are way higher than a person that is normally at home or hasn't had such traumatic experiences. Well, that's it for today's broadcast, and this is Kendall Fields signing out.